pets are so near and dear. And I found that to be one of the number one questions too was, and it's so sweet because I feel like the people who asked it on the poll that I did were almost embarrassed. Like they almost felt
Oh,
bad that
always.
I know. And
Apologies.
do you get that? Oh,
Oh,
and I
all
just
the time.
think, well, didn't God give you that love? And it says in Proverbs, a
Yes.
righteous man cares even for his animals. And
Yes.
so, yeah, would you speak into that? Because, and I know you spoke a little bit on in Illuminations on this, that maybe since you wrote the book, your perspective has changed a little bit. I'd love to hear that. So,
It
yeah,
changed radically. I've always loved animals, dogs in particular, but I
yeah,
mean cats, lizards, bunny rabbits, whatever. I grew up in an area that even had skunks. I never tried to take a skunk as a pet, but
your
I
mom was
just would
happy.
admire them.
Yeah,
Beautiful creatures,
yes.
raccoons,
Mm.
coyotes. We have coyotes right next to our property, and our little dog, who's a double doodle, half golden doodle, half labradoodle, and oh my word, when the coyotes, which are right outside our fence, and there's about 8 of them that live there, and it's a high and well-tended fence because I don't want them getting in there and
Yeah.
getting Gracie, but she's fascinated, and she'll go out and like she's going to scare them. She's going to she's
I
she's
love it.
30 pounds. She's not a full
Oh,
size. Yeah, 30 pounds, like she's going to scare the coyotes. But anyway, but it's a wonderful, amazing world out there. Well, here's and people love their pets and should never apologize for it. And sometime go to 2 Samuel 12. If I'm one chapter off, then you'll find it. But it's the one where the prophet Nathan tells David the story about the poor man who had a lamb. And then he's going to use this story, to point out that David has committed adultery with Bathsheba. He's stolen someone's wife. He sent Uriah to the front lines of battle, essentially murdering him. But he tells this story. Now, a lot of people say, oh, yeah, but that's just a parable. No, but you have to understand, parables to work are true to life. You can't say something stupid or foolish in a parable or it will not be effective. It's something that is the way life is. A sower goes out to sow. A planter goes out to plant. That's what they do, right? So then that becomes the basis for the parable. So he tells the parable about this poor man who has this little lamb. And this lamb he cherishes, he holds and cuddles in his arms. He hand feeds her. He gives her to drink from what he's drinking from. And then at night, she comes to his bed and sleeps next to him.
mm,
All of those things, to a certain degree, have been true of Nancy and me with all of our dogs, and yeah, we have friends that are very strict, and the dog never gets up in the bed.
friends
The
different.
dog never gets scraps. The dog never get whatever, and we just go, you know what? I'd rather be a dog in our house than your house, but that's okay. but
Love
they
it.
love animals, but they genuinely
Yeah.
love animals. Okay, but my point is, wouldn't you look at that, and wouldn't even many pastors today and Bible teachers say, if someone said, oh, I have this pet and I hold her in my arms and I feed her and wouldn't they roll their eyes and say, wow, you're idolizing your pet. That's displeasing to God. Don't go overboard with your pets or whatever. The interesting thing is there's no value judgment that's made on this man. Nothing
Wow.
bad is said about this man. The only bad thing is said about the man who takes that animal, kills it, and eats it. It's just so unthinkable that David says he's very angry, the man who did this
Yeah.
deserves to die. And then the analogy of the parable, Nathan says those words, you are the man. But my point is not what Nathan is saying. My point is this is a man who loves and spoils and coddles. Nancy used to say to me, she says, I'm so glad that while we are not to spoil our children, God never tells us not to spoil our dogs.
Oh,
So I don't think, she said, I don't think I'll
that's
be
a good
held
word.
accountable at the judgment seat of Christ because I spoiled my dog. And
That's
I
funny.
can tell you the ministry of animals in Nancy's life, even
Yes.
in the years of dying, even the years of all of the rounds of chemo and all of the rounds of radiation and the 3 surgeries and all of this, she would just hug her dogs, and her dogs would get in her lap and lick her face, and
Mm,
and she
that's sweet.
loved them. And she would always be asking friends, "Hey, bring your dog over," and we go over to our
Oh,
friend's house on Thursday nights, and we'd bring our dog, and then they had their 2 dogs, and I'm telling you, those dogs bring joy into that weekly meeting.
I bet.
No matter how anyone is feeling, if you can be down, Gracie, my dog, literally every day is so excited to be alive. She
Mm.
runs around in circles when I get out of bed. She sleeps next to me in the bed. She just, of course, like all dogs, can't wait for the walk. And when she just starts going crazy when I pick up the leash. But if we loved God the way our pets love us, um, the world would be a lot better place.
Wow.
Isaiah 11, as I mentioned, mentions 11 different kinds of animals. You've got lion and wolf, and you've got the panther, the leopard. You've got the bear cubs. You've got all of these different kinds of animals that are mentioned. Think of the flood. What does it say? That God rescued not just humans, but animals, and one of every kind of animal. Why? Because animals are that valuable to him, and then he declares it to be an eternal covenant, an everlasting covenant. 9 times in Genesis 9, he talks about, I make this covenant not only between you, Noah, and your family, the human race, but between me and all living creatures. Well, does that include our pets? I think it does. And finally, I'll just say this. Study the end of Romans 9, and I do have 2 chapters in my Big Heaven book, one on animals in general, and where they fit in the possibility of being in heaven. I don't think it's a possibility. I think it's a certainty on the new earth. Whether or not they're in the present heaven, or whether the references to animals like horses now in the present heaven, whether those are literal or figurative, I don't think we can be sure, but for sure they'll be in the new earth. But Romans 8 adds a huge component for pet owners, and it's this. It says, the whole creation groans along with us, that's human beings,
Mm,
groans with us, longing for the redemption that will come with the resurrection of God's children. So when it says the whole creation groans and suffers, well, who besides human beings literally groan in this world? Who literally suffers? I mean, I'm from Oregon, and there's probably a lot of people here that believe that the trees
the
suffer
tree,
if
yeah.
you cut one, down. And I'm all for environmental positive stuff. But I'm just saying, I
Yeah.
don't think you murder a tree when you cut it down. But when it's an animal,
Yeah.
they do suffer. And sentient animals in particular are conscious of their suffering. And if you've been around horses and dogs and cats, you know that suffering is a reality. But they suffer with us, and they long for us, with us, and groan with us for the redemption that will come with the resurrection or redemption of our bodies, the resurrection of God's children. Well, why would they be longing for the redemption of our bodies?
Mm,
It's just talking about the resurrection. Will it be like, well, I lived a life, and let's face it, many animals, especially animals in the wild, have lived lives of terrible suffering,
Yeah.
intestinal parasites, being eaten alive, being forest fires. I mean, it has been a pretty horrific world under the curse for so many animals. But
Yeah.
when God is saying, not only does he love these animals, but they are looking forward to the resurrection, our redemption, to me, I think it's saying precisely because just as they fell on our coattails because of our sin, not because of their sin, because of our sin, they fell on our coattails. And Paul is saying in the resurrection, the whole kingdom, all creation will rise on our coattails. That's the picture of the new earth. So then it simply becomes, well, we know then from Romans 8 that some animals, at least, if not many, most, or who knows, maybe all, animals who once lived on this earth will live again on the new earth. Then the question becomes, do you suppose it's possible our pets might be among them? Well, then it's like, well, who would be most obvious? If you were God who knows how to give good gifts to his children, which Matthew 7 says, wouldn't you answer the prayer of your child to bring back to you your Springer Spaniel or your cat or your, whatever? Don't you think he who knows how to give good gifts would do that to live with you forever? And I think probably he'll do it without our asking. But
Yeah.
if we're looking around, we don't see our pet, and we ask, do you think God would hold back that gift from us? I think if you know the nature and generosity and kindness of God and his love for his children and his love for his animals, the obvious answer is he would do that in a heartbeat.